What is up, basketball fans? Welcome to the NBA Outlet. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me, as always, Kory Waldron. What's up, Kory?
Hanging out. Allergy season sucks, but the NBA draft lottery occurred. We have the conference finals, so everything else is peachy.
Yeah, peachy. And what doesn't suck is my t-shirt, Brooklyn Buzz t-shirt. Shout out to Design Tree. Check it out. You can make your purchase, Design Tree /off the glass. Also hit up our website. We got it there. And just quick reminder for the show, check us out iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, Google Play, Dash Radio, and YouTube. But let's talk about the draft lottery. And I can't recall a draft lottery being talked about this much in my entire life. People were going crazy about this draft.
Not just that, how many times do rookies go to the draft lottery? I don't recall. It was really an ordeal all the way around this year compared to years past, I felt.
Yeah, I believe rookies are there, but it's just not as talked about as much because one, the draft lottery is not talked about as much. Two, there's not necessarily a player like Zion in the draft. So I feel like that just brought up a ton of speculation, and there's a lot of hype around him in terms of changing a franchise. And the fact it was a new draft lottery style and the percentages were different, I thought it really worked. Tanking teams didn't really benefit that much from being the worst in the league. I mean, the Knicks had the worst record in the league and also the worst record in their franchise history. They only ended up with a third pick.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the other teams, Cavs, Suns, Bulls, Hawks, all finishing 5, 6, 7, and 8th, and all those teams probably projected themselves to be top 5.
Yeah.
So like you said, it mixes it up. And of course, the Lakers getting up to 4th is the real eye-popping team. It's go figure. The league's rigged. Well, it's not rigged, but people can say it is.
Well, let's work our way down. Let's start from the top. New Orleans, they moved up 6 spots. Essentially, the first month of the season, this was looked at as a team that could go to the Western Conference Finals and be really good and maybe even compete with some of the best teams in the league. All of a sudden, Anthony Davis rumors, injuries happen. Next thing you know, they tank the second half of the season. They move up 6 spots and they win the Zion sweepstakes.
I mean, God bless them because they deserve it. If you're ever obviously, I wish it's true. I wish they didn't get the first pick, right? I wish somebody else got it personally for selfish reasons. But for a franchise and a fan base, if there's one that deserved it, it was the Pelicans. I mean, Anthony Davis, that whole fiasco, the fact that he still wants out. They said maybe we'll be able to keep him with Zion. And he's like, nah, I'm out. This is it. So it's good for the fan base. Now you know that you have a future possible all-star, superstar level talent that you're going to be able to draft with no questions asked.
I mean, their rebuild just got supercharged because they're going to get Zion, they're going to trade Anthony Davis, and they're going to end up with at least 2 really good prospects and probably more picks. I mean, I've heard all types of different offers from the Knicks still being in it. The Lakers obviously moving up to get the 4th pick is going to help them a lot. And then you even look at teams like Atlanta, who I believe have 8th and 10th, and they could throw in maybe John Collins or something like that. So there's going to be a lot of packages. Even a team like Boston, who got the 14th pick, it's still kind of added to their pool of assets. So, I mean, New Orleans is in a really good shape. In my eyes, they're definitely the biggest winner in the entire draft lottery.
For sure. I mean, I think the Grizzlies are a close second.
Yeah, for sure.
Because now, obviously, Ja Morant looks like the guy to go at number 2. And with a guy like Mike Conley, who there's already been trade rumors about, he's up there in age. Now it just makes perfect sense that he's probably going to be dealt.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's ideal. You move on with Morant and Jaren Jackson, and then Dylan Brooks is a solid role player as well. Then maybe you can move Conley this year to get a pick in this draft. So you add another young player maybe. I don't think they're going to get a ton of assets for him. But then I believe Parsons is off the book soon too. So then all of a sudden, their future is looking a lot brighter than it did prior to the draft because, in our eyes, moving up 6 spots in this draft is really big because after the top 3, top 4 players, it looks like the talent or the potential really drops off.
Yeah, I mean, the sure thing players are 1 through 4, it feels like, and then everybody else, it's really a roll of the dice. So exactly, you want to be in the top spot, and both teams like the Pelicans and Grizzlies, I didn't expect them to be able to. I didn't expect them getting top 3 picks. If I had to guess, I would have said they get somewhere between the 5 and 8, and of course, this is where they land. And both teams, I mean, Memphis, and personally, I love the thought of them getting Morant, and then now you have Jaren Jackson, who I thought was extremely good last year before he got hurt with the thigh injury. It could be really good in Memphis.
Yeah, I mean, both teams going into the offseason, it was kind of dim. You're looking at them and you're like, all right, what's going to happen with New Orleans? What's going to happen with Memphis? We're not really sure of their future. It looks like they're trading away their best players. Then all of a sudden, they might still do that, but now they have really good young players to move on with. And then number 3, you got the Knicks, who dropped 2 spots, which, like, I feel like is not that crazy, but Knicks fans had this irrational thought that they were like guaranteed to get the first pick. There was only a 14% chance for them to get number 1, and they didn't get it. And I don't think it's crazy they didn't get it. And people are like really upset, and they're like, oh, change the draft lottery back. Like, nah, they just didn't get number 1.
Yeah, it's Knicks fans are the worst. Like, I don't know. Okay, Stephen A. Did you see his rant?
I did not, but I could care
I'll
less.
send it to you. It's funny. He's one of those, like, I don't want to talk to anybody. Like, you're my brother, and I don't want to talk to you. But guys are getting Zion tattoos. Relax. Like, they just
14%. 14%. We're not even talking 25. We're not talking 33%. We're not talking we're talking 14%. Like a lot. Like, that's not a high percentage.
No, it's simple Knicks fans thinking because they've been so bad that they're going to get the first round. Like, I don't know. The Knicks always think they're going to be better. Like, we have Derrick Rose, Carmelo Anthony, Porzingis. We're superstar. It's a big 3. Like, they're just always delusional, and this is the result. And 3 isn't bad. They're probably going to end up with R.J. Barrett. And who knows? I know there's rumors and hopes that they trade their 3rd pick to the Pelicans for some Anthony Davis deal. I doubt that would happen. I mean, it'd be cool to see Zion and RJ Barrett play at the next level together too. Mm-hmm. But again, I feel like that's also a long shot.
Yeah, I mean, I also wouldn't be that upset about getting RJ Barrett. Like, yeah, obviously it's not Zion, but there's still a lot of potential with him. So I don't really understand the major disappointment. Like,
yeah, I mean,
the Nets had a terrible record 5 to 10 years ago when they ended up having the 3 pick instead of number 1. So it happens.
Yeah, I mean, and RJ Barrett, I personally like him more than Zion just because I think he's more of a sure thing. Like, I know what I'm getting with RJ Barrett. I'm still not fully sold on what Zion looks like in the NBA. That's my own beef. But I think Barrett's going to be a very good player. But Paul George ceiling, but then probably Andrew Wiggins floor at this point, which is pretty bad. But time will tell.
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's, time will tell with all these prospects. And number 4, another team that was a major win. They went up 7 spots, and that's the Lakers.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. I don't know what they do with this pick. I feel like
they trade for Anthony Davis, dog. That's what you got to do.
Well, according to reports, the Pelicans and Lakers plan on being in the Cold War for a long time, even after this year, because the Pelicans don't want to deal with them.
David Griffin, though, doesn't seem pardon my French, like a dumbass. Like, he seems like he'll make the move. Unless New Orleans ownership is just going to be stupid about it, which would be stupid in my opinion, you make the move because the Lakers can offer you the 4 pick. They give you Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, and Kyle Kuzma, and then maybe you get some more picks out of them. I think that's going to be the best package, and the Lakers are probably going to be willing to give up the most because they have LeBron. So then all of a sudden, the Kyrie rumors are really picking up. Kyrie, LeBron, AD. I would be willing to trade most of my young core for that too.
I mean, I would love to see Lonzo and Zion as a young core going forward. Brandon Ingram, I'm on the fence about. I'm kind of concerned still about the blood clot. I don't know. That's an issue that normally comes back. Granted, he's younger than Chris Bosh when he had his blood clot issue, but that's a worry for me. But otherwise, I think you're right. I mean, if you can get a 4 pick and 3 young possible core-like pieces to build around Zion, your team may already be fun, not competitive, but 8-seed competitive possibly, depending on how they get.
Like Hawks fun last year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? A
better upside.
Yeah, I mean, you look at it too, is you get Lonzo, you get Ingram, and you get Kuzma. You think one of those 3 guys is going to be an all-star, one of the other guys maybe is a bust, and then the other guy's a role player. It's a win. And then you get number 4, and you could draft whoever you want at number 4. And then you have number 1 too. So it's just you're in a really good position to jumpstart your rebuild. And I know a lot of fear for New Orleans in trading Anthony Davis was the hype around the franchise. But if you bring in so much young talent, that's almost more exciting than being a mediocre playoff team, in my opinion.
Yeah, and this is, in my opinion, the best time to get these young talent because these guys are all going to their 3rd or 4th year, so they've been in the league for a couple of years. This is generally when you see those guys make that next jump. D'Angelo Russell sticks out, Victor Oladipo kind of sticks out. Guys who just took a little bit longer, 3-4 years, so they could be even catching these guys right as they start to pop. While Zion then can be more comfortable developing because he's got some nice young studs around him.
And then even looking at it from, long-term perspective is maybe you don't have room for all these guys. You end up trading them in the future and adding a star in the future.
Right. And you still got Drew Holiday.
And I think you move Drew Holiday too.
Yeah.
I think you move him, and then you bring in more young pieces, and who knows, maybe Drew Holiday's enough to get you another low-end lottery pick. So like you could really supercharge your rebuild and put yourself in an amazing position for the next couple of years, and you could probably still have cap space to take on some more bad contracts to add more picks. If New Orleans does this right, like they could be back to being a really good team in like 3 to 4 years.
I would consider trading Domantas Sabonis for Drew Holiday. And whatever other filler you would have to make, and Aaron Holiday possibly, or some sort of expiring.
That'd be funny. That'd be funny. Holiday for Holiday.
Yeah, just trading the brothers. But
how old is Sabonis?
I think he's going to be 23 or 24.
Yeah, that's good for their timeline.
Actually, he might even be younger. Might even be 22, 23.
If they said
this is only his third year.
Sabonis in the Pacers' first round pick, would you do it for Drew Holiday?
Yeah.
I think I would too.
You have to have salaries. We had to throw in more. So but I would totally do it.
You could have the best defensive backcourt in the East for sure, maybe the entire NBA.
Yeah, and there's also the dilemma right now among Pacers fans and everyone in general of can you keep Sabonis and Turner long term, of course.
Yeah, so I mean, I wouldn't be opposed to that.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. I think, Griffin could have a really crazy offseason for the Pelicans and just like move them in a huge direction forward. Now, we were talking about the Lakers and ended back on the Pelicans. Over to the Cavs, they dropped 3 spots and they're down to number 5, which is pretty rough for them, to be honest. And they're out of all these tanking teams, you could argue they needed the high pick more than anybody.
They definitely needed it more, but I'm definitely glad they didn't get it. I mean, I don't want to see I just have no interest in what Cleveland has in general as a young core. So I feel like if they get a top prospect, he's almost wasting away the first couple of years. Granted, they could be relevant again, but as a selfish fan, once again, I was glad they didn't get Zion because I would have hated to see Zion in Cleveland for 3-4 years.
To be honest, if I'm Cleveland, depending on like who they value at number 5, I might look into possibly moving down, adding another pick because they need more than one young piece. They need like 3 or 4 because even looking at the roster, there's not a ton of guys moving forward. They're like, all right, this is a really good fit. Like they have Colin Sexton, Jetty, and I don't really know what are the young pieces you're really happy about over there.
If I was Cleveland, I might even try and package the 5 pick with Kevin Love.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what you would, be able to do with that unless you're trying to get. I think you'd be better off probably separating them. I'm thinking maybe if Atlanta really wanted to move up, maybe you could get them to trade. I believe they have, the 8th pick, and they might have another pick later in the draft or the following season.
They have 8 and 10.
Yeah, I think that might be too much, but I don't know. I wouldn't do 8 and 10 in my opinion. I would rather just keep 8 and 10. If they had another later pick or another pick next year, I'd probably consider it, or maybe even if someone like Boston wanted to move up and maybe they'll throw you a young player that's on the roster. I don't know who it would be. I think there's a lot of options for the Cavs. They're better off getting creative than probably sticking at 5, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Phoenix, I don't really care that they didn't move up because they've been in the draft lottery, which feels like my entire existence. They went down 3 spots. Thoughts on them?
They could have really benefited from getting Morant.
Mm-hmm.
That would have been the ideal fit to have a guy like him who's a playmaker first alongside Devin Booker. But of course, they fall down, and the DeAndre Ayton pick from last year looks really bad in my opinion, even still. Not like he's not going to be a good player, but I think like just overall roster fit, that just wasn't the right guy to get.
I think you probably should have taken Luka, but that's for another whole entire show. And Phoenix, this is going to make them more active in free agency because they're not going to get Morant. They maybe will get like Garland, who's a pretty high point guard prospect, but I know Kobe White's a guy, but I think that's a little too high for him. Number 7, you got the Bulls who dropped 3 spots. Another team, just nothing too crazy. They have a lot of young talent in that team. Maybe they look to move the pick. Maybe they look to keep it and add somebody to the roster.
This is where I think Kobe White goes, personally. I think they're looking for a point guard. They really haven't had a point guard since Derrick Rose was good. Yeah, and he's a defensive first point guard, but he is a decent scorer. I know that my buddy lives in North Carolina. Said he has like the all-time high school record in the country and in the state for high school basketball, scoring wise. So I think he'd be a nice fit for them.
And Kory and I are not draft experts, but if you want some draft expert content, head to OTGbasketball.com. Our draft guys have been destroying it. Matt has been doing some excellent breakdowns of all different players, giving them NBA comparisons, strengths and weaknesses of their game. I mean, I know I've gained a lot of knowledge from just reading his articles on there. Dalton's been doing some great stuff. Check out the team. They've been doing really good work. And then moving down from Chicago, we got Atlanta at 8, dropped 3 spots. Washington dropped 3 spots. Atlanta, via Dallas's pick, dropped down 1 spot. Minnesota dropped 1. Charlotte stayed. Miami stayed. Sacramento's pick went to Boston. Any thoughts on any of that?
I would really like to see DeAndre Hunter end up going to Atlanta. A versatile wing, great wingspan, a little bit of offense. The offense is the biggest issue for him, but a great defender. I think he would really fit in alongside John Collins and Trae Young going forward, and Kevin Huerter, of course.
Yeah. See if he lasts that long. I know some people thought.
I know like 4 prospects, so I really got to talk up the prospects right now.
It's like, let me name drop a couple real quick. Obviously, like we talked about, draft content's going to be huge, head to OTG, but also we'll be getting some of the guys on to give you more of a breakdown after the playoffs kind of wrap up. But talking playoffs, you want to talk Eastern Conference or Western Conference first?
We got to talk about the East.
All right. Well, last night, a really good game. I think that was a really good way to start the Eastern Conference Finals.
Fantastic.
Milwaukee picked up the W, 108-100. Toronto pretty much owned the game for the most part, and Milwaukee just turned it on in the fourth quarter, and they took away the W. And a big shout out to my boy, Brook Lopez.
Yeah, I mean, best Kyle Lowry game of the playoffs, possibly. I know he had a really good game.
Maybe the best playoff game of Kyle Lowry's career, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, set a career high with 7 threes, was just aggressive. That's the Kyle Lowry the Toronto Raptors needed. That's when he's playing like that alongside Kawhi, who Kawhi was inefficient, but the defense that he got all of last night was ridiculous because they threw a lot of guys at him. They were physical with him. But when Kyle Lowry is that good, that's when Toronto can seriously win this series, and they're hard to beat. Is when Kyle Lowry is effective like that offensively. And Siakam, I just don't think he's healthy, but I thought Toronto was fantastic in that game. I was really surprised. I felt like the Bucks were going to lose that game for a majority of the game. Then there was that one run to start the third by the Bucks where I thought this is where it kind of swings, and Toronto kind of mellowed that out. And then, like you said, in the fourth, I think Kyle Lowry was 5 for 7, and the rest of the team was 0 for 15 in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I believe for the second half, Lowry and Kawhi were like 12 of 24, and the rest of the team was 1 of 23.
Yeah.
So that's an entire half. I thought Lowry was really good. I thought Kawhi was solid considering the type of attention he was getting. I felt like in the first half, their offense was completely different than the second half, specifically the fourth quarter. The first half, they kind of ran their offense, and it wasn't Kawhi dominant, and they were kind of trying to push the pace a little bit, get some more open shots. And then in the second half, they got a little bit more in the half court, got a little isolation heavy. And you mentioned Siakam. He doesn't look healthy, like you said. He looked a little bit better than the end of the Philadelphia series, but he just needs to knock down his threes. 2 and 9 from deep, and a lot of them were wide open looks. And the one of the 2 shots he made from 3, one was like the end of the third quarter. It was a tough ass shot. So he just needs to knock down that for some spacing. Felt like Danny Green, not a good game. 1 of 5, 1 of 4 from 3. Marc Gasol started off aggressive and then got back to being timid again. And if Danny Green and Marc Gasol are going to give them 12 points on 3 of 16 shooting, they're probably going to lose the series.
I liked Ibaka last night. I thought Ibaka was solid.
I would have probably played Ibaka possibly more minutes, especially when they started attacking Gasol in the pick and roll, because Ibaka is so much more mobile, and he would have been able to crowd Lopez a little bit more, who was just killing them.
And like you said, Lopez dominated Marc Gasol last night. Like that was a fantastic performance by Brook Lopez. And like this is another thing we haven't talked about Milwaukee really yet. Eric Bledsoe and Chris Middleton weren't good last night.
Yeah, they weren't. Malcolm Brogdon was better than Bledsoe in my eyes.
I mean, Brogdon looks really good for a guy who's only played 2 games since coming back after missing, 2 months, 3 months?
Yeah, it was a good amount of time, most of the postseason.
Right, and now he's back, and he, like you said, he looked really good. But those 2 guys can combine for 16 points, and then he got Brook Lopez to 29. And it was the first game of this playoff run, I think, where he's really been this effective from deep. I know he caught the one ball at his ankles, and he popped it off for 3. He was just on another level, and he completely dominated Marc Gasol. He was getting rebounds over top of him. We
saw the best version of Brook Lopez last night. And, some people will be surprised, but to be honest, I've seen Brook play this way before in the playoffs when he was on the Nets. He's had really – if you look at his postseason numbers, you'd be impressed. Obviously, so far in the postseason, he hasn't been as good. But when he's attacking inside and just being aggressive on the boards, which is obviously one of the criticisms of his game, is not attacking the boards enough. And he blocked like 4 shots last night? He was just fully locked in. You're not probably going to get this the rest of the series, but it is a big confidence booster for a player like him who can get hot from deep.
Yeah, I mean, 2 things. One, you don't need it again because hopefully Chris Middleton shows up and plays that out at the level we know he can, and same with Eric Bledsoe. But I know that there was a play last night where Lopez had a post layup or a post hook, And then Reggie Miller was like, I didn't know he had that in his repertoire. It was like, bro, this is like what he used to do for his entire career. Like
That's how he made the All-Star team the first time. It wasn't shooting threes. It was just dominating inside.
Exactly. I heard that and I was like, come on, Reggie, you're better than that. Because I know Reggie gets a lot of shit as a commentator, and I'm actually a fan, and that was bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's rough. You got to just I think a lot of fans would know Brook has that game, and the fact he didn't know just means he doesn't really watch him other than when he was on the Bucks.
Yeah.
But one guy, if I'm Milwaukee, I would be concerned about Eric Bledsoe. Like, he's 3 of 12, 0-6 from 3. His 3-point shot misses were terrible. They weren't even like a little bit off, like they rimmed out. A couple of them like hit backboard, hit bottom rim. Yeah, I would be concerned. And if I'm Coach Bud, I'm considering playing Malcolm Brogdon more minutes in this series if I have to.
I think
he can deal with it health-wise.
Yeah, I mean, I think Brogdon definitely gets a boost in minutes. I wouldn't be shocked if Brogdon starts game 2. I think Mirotic can come off the bench. I really didn't like
kind of trash.
Yeah, I didn't like any of the minutes he played in game 1. And even the series before against Boston, he had, I think, a nice game 5, start to game 5. But overall, he wasn't anything special. So I would look to put Brogdon back in the lineup. And Bledsoe, you got to stop settling for jump shots. That's a guy who's got to get to the hole. He's at his best when he is causing penetration, either kicking out or finishing at the rim. So for him, I think it's just stop settling for jump shots. That's not his game.
Yeah, and I think some of that is Toronto's defense, though. I think one thing they did really well last night was just collapse the paint and rotate out well and have some really strong closeouts. You know, guys that are good three-point shooters are going to be able to knock down, shots even if they're getting closed out on. But guys who are mediocre or bad, they're not going to knock it down. And I think that's why the ideal lineup for them is having Brogdon and Lopez out there, because they're such great floor spacers for Giannis. Because when they do collapse, because at times they did a really good job of making Giannis's life difficult, because it's not like he had a huge game, 24.7 to 16, which would be good for most guys. But for Giannis, that's a mediocre game.
Yeah, I mean, he turned it on late.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely got more aggressive and more efficient later on in that game. But you're right. I mean, in that first half, Brook Lopez is what kept them afloat. And then you have Brogdon off the bench. It really helps sustain this team. Because Antetokounmpo, like you said, he wasn't fantastic. The Bucks did a nice job of forming almost a wall. I mean, the Raptors formed like a wall almost and not let Antetokounmpo get to the rim easily.
Yeah, exactly. And then what they did in the second half, especially the fourth quarter, started to put Marcus Gasol in that pick and roll a little bit. They were able to get isolations on him with Giannis, and he doesn't really have a chance in terms of lateral quickness to stop him. So, but you're right, Brogdon and Lopez in that second quarter really kept the Bucks afloat and kept the game from getting out of hand. And then they were able to maintain, and then they just dominate the fourth, like we talked about, 32-17. I think pretty much in the entire NBA playoffs, the game, if you can keep it close most of the time and dominate one quarter, you're probably going to win the game.
Yeah.
So overall, you learned a little bit about the series, but obviously it's game 1, kind of feel it out. And I felt like, the Raptors possibly were fatigued. I think Kawhi might have been a little bit fatigued towards the end of that fourth quarter.
Yeah, I wanted, so I actually had a tweet, but I didn't want to use that excuse because everyone was like, well, he had so many load management games. So I didn't want to give him the rest excuse, but I think you're right. I think he definitely was tired. That game 7, and also he played the first 33 minutes of the first 36 minutes. He played the first 33. Like, he had no rest time for a lot of that game too.
Nick Nurse, I think, mismanaged his minutes, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I think in the end of the third quarter, you could already tell he was starting to get gassed because he had a jumper right in like the free throw line and he was really short on it. He was able to get the rebound and put it back, but he didn't look right. I think he would have been better off resting him 2 minutes remaining in the third quarter, take advantage of the break, and then maybe rest him the first 2 minutes of the fourth or the first minute of the fourth. But he didn't give him rest, I think, to the end of the third quarter, and then he brought him back in at like the 9:30 mark of the fourth quarter.
You know what I took that as? I took that as fear that my team can't do it if Kawhi's not out there.
And I think the problem is they just don't really have another good wing on the roster right now. Like,
Norman Powell has not been good in the playoffs.
He had like a decent moments in the first half. Second half, he really did nothing. And then Fred VanVleet, just like, I'm not really sure what's up with him. He just doesn't look the same as he did last season.
Yeah, no, he's it's one of those things. There's not really any rhyme or reason. Almost like Terry Rozier to a sense. These guys had really nice, almost breakout years, and he's definitely taken a step back this year overall.
The interesting thing, obviously, I know he hasn't played most of the postseason. He didn't play towards the end of the season, too. I feel like a guy like Jeremy Lin could actually help the Raptors. but obviously they're not going to start playing him now, but he could give them some of that scoring boost they need right now.
Yeah, I think for them, it's just their defensive identity takes a hit when Jeremy Lin's out there.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you're right. It wouldn't hurt to add somebody who can also just hit the long ball. Because, I mean, Fred VanVleet gets looks, but he can't even make the wide open ones, it feels like.
Yeah, he lost the confidence. But I know Lin's 3-point numbers have been like absolutely terrible since he joined the Raptors. They're really good with the Hawks, but Lin can drive to the rim a little bit. He's not going to dunk on anybody, but he can get to the free throw line a bit, which is enough to just kind of hold off and get Kawhi some rest.
Yeah.
But Ibaka would be a guy I would probably look to play some more minutes, in the next game. And then obviously you just need Siakam to just step up. And kind of weird like that he's coming off injury and Nick Nurse plays him 42 minutes.
I honestly think Nick Nurse just the bench is to me so bad at these certain positions that you can't afford to not play Siakam, Lowry, and Kawhi heavy minutes. I think Lowry still played in the high 30s, if not low 40s.
He played 40.
Yeah.
So pretty much the starters went 42 Kawhi, 40 for Lowry, 42 for Siakam, Danny Green 35, and 39 for Marcus Gasol.
That's no faith in the bench.
Yeah. I think like you still probably are going to play like your two best players 40 minutes in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But I think
the conference final, you have to. You're not holding anything back. But it's a problem, especially with this team's a little bit older, right? These aren't young, spry guys. So having Marcus Gasol play 39, Kyle Lowry, who's always been somewhat banged up, playing 40, it is a little bit of a concern. And obviously, they've had to really lean on Kawhi heavily through the last two rounds.
Yeah, and I think an area that stuck out in this game too is the rebounding battle. 60 boards for the Bucks, 46 for the Raptors, 15 offensive for the Bucks, 8 for the Raptors. So
offensive rebounds, that's crucial. I know Brook Lopez had a couple over Marcus Gasol, and then Antetokounmpo just seems to always find a way.
Yeah, and there's no excuse for Antetokounmpo, but Brook Lopez you should be boxing out.
Yeah.
So, but it should be interesting. Game 2 is really big, and I feel like the Raptors probably blew a great opportunity in Game 1 to win.
Yeah, I mean, they always talk about, too, how crucial Game 1 is in general for a road team, because you can kind of really throw off the momentum of a series. I know I said Bucks in 6, but I'm telling you, I feel pretty good about Bucks in 5, especially if they win Game 2.
Yeah, it'll be obviously a big test going back to Toronto. But moving over to the Western Conference, obviously Blazers and Warriors. Warriors took Game 1, 116-94. And I'm going to be straight up. I don't really have a lot to say about this series, because it just pretty much played out exactly how I thought it was going to play out.
The Warriors look better without Kevin Durant?
I wouldn't go that far, but Steph looks better without Kevin Durant.
I think Clay looks better without Kevin Durant. I think
it's more shots, so it's just better rhythm for everybody.
There was a quote, I think by Seth Curry, saying that the Warriors move faster without Durant. They're not better without Durant, but they move faster. And I agree. I think in that Game 1, they were all over the place. Iggy was all over the place. I thought Clay was really aggressive. I loved Curry was fantastic. I mean, Curry has really found his rhythm with Kevin Durant going out. Well, if you take away the 0-point first half against Houston, that is. But I've been really impressed. It
doesn't matter, though, because he dropped 33 in the second half. So.
Exactly. But I don't know. To me, this is a 5-game series. Especially, I know we got the report today that Kevin Durant's still like 2-3 games away from being back.
This might be a 4-game series, and I've been impressed by the Blazers, but the Warriors are really locked in right now, and if Dame Lillard can't get out of his funk, they really have no shot.
He's terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. Some of the shots he took in Game 1 were like as if he was still in heat check mode. He just hasn't been good. They had 10 turnovers combined, him and McCollum. Those guys have to be more efficient. It was one of those things where we talked about this in the preview, that maybe Portland could take advantage of the Golden State Warriors sloppy ball handling, and it was the complete vice versa. I know the Warriors took care of the basketball, and the Blazers were just sloppy as hell.
And I think this, like in terms of a fan perspective, kind of is exciting because obviously the talk is Kevin Durant's going to leave. And like I think a lot of people are like, oh, Golden State's dynasty is going to be done when he leaves. Like, no, it's not. Like they're still going to have Steph Curry, Clay, and Draymond Green. They'll probably be able to add at least another solid piece or do something with that roster. So like I think it just kind of makes the West even more enticing, especially if KD goes to the East.
I said it was over. I said the dynasty was over when he leaves. I mean,
I honestly, like, if Steph is going to get back to playing at his MVP level, he's just one of those players. And Clay, I think, is going to go back to being a little bit better because I think out of everyone, he was almost impacted the most because he went from being second option to third option to 2 MVP candidates as 1 and 2.
I think the one thing that a lot of people forgot with Klay Thompson is that he can dribble, Like
Yeah,
I think
he's not
people
a great dribbler, but he
Right.
can at least do a little bit, and I think he's improved in that aspect a ton.
Yeah, and I think people forget because he's really been on offense kind of made to be that catch and shoot guy. Like he's not supposed to dribble or try and make plays off the dribble, and he can do that a little bit when he's given the chance.
And it's just building more confidence for him. And obviously, Draymond, I thought, obviously,
I think he's been fantastic in these playoffs. Maybe one of his best playoff performances since not last year, the year before, their first title.
And honestly, they got a lot of production from a lot of role players. Jonas Jerebko had a really good game. I think he might have scored more points in that game than he did like most of the postseason.
Yeah, it was their best bench unit showing of the playoffs.
And it's kind of what they need. Like Jerebko's not a game breaker or anything like that, but just getting a couple points from him, a couple from Quinn Cook, Kevon Looney. I thought has been pretty solid most of the postseason. Sean Livingston still hasn't been great, but they don't need a ton. They just need a little bit from these guys, especially if Clay and Curry are going to be good.
Do you have the stats?
Go ahead.
Do you have the stats in front of you?
Yeah, I always do.
What are the assist total for Golden State Warriors in game one? How many assists do they have as a team?
As a team, they had 30 assists on 42 made field goals, which is
it felt that way because the ball was one of those games where the ball wasn't stopping. It was just literally finding the best shot.
And Portland wasn't too bad themselves. I mean, 21 assists on 30 made field goals, which isn't bad. It's just they didn't make a lot of shots.
That's not good. 30 shots is not good.
The Blazers were 36% from the field. The Warriors were 50% from the field, 51% from three. Portland was 25% from three. And some of it was just missing wide open looks. And what I was going to say before is Portland wasted a solid game from Mo Harkless, who scored 17, and Rodney Hood, who scored 17. Now, if you're going to get that from your role players and CJ and Dame aren't going to perform, you probably just wasted an opportunity where you maybe could have stole one.
You definitely wasted Mo Harkless's performance because it feels like he gets one good game in every three. So this was his game. And he was pretty good in round one, wasn't very good last round.
He was big in game 7, though. He
was big in game 7. I say You're right. But he got a little bit cold in the middle. I know he had a sprained ankle after game 1. And then Rodney Hood, I mean, he could have been out a lot longer. It looked like when he hyperextended his knee against Denver that he might have been out. And like you said, he had 17. I thought he was effective. But like you said, Lillard and McCollum, if those guys are going to be sloppy with the ball and not hit their shots, Portland ain't got a shot in hell.
I mean, and also, like you brought this up before, turnovers. Dude, if you turn over the ball 21 times against the Warriors, you have zero chance at winning that game. Like you have to shoot 50% from three and dominate the offensive boards. Like 20 turnovers in any playoff game, you're probably catching an L.
Yeah.
So what do you think happens tonight?
Warriors win, and it's probably I don't want to say it's a blowout. It's probably like a 15-point win.
Yeah, I probably feel like it's going to have a similar vibe to the other game. Maybe Portland will be a little bit better. I think Dame won't be that bad again, but I wouldn't feel too confident.
I keep saying that to myself. I keep saying Dame can't be as bad as he was last game because I felt that way going into game 1 after how he performed in game 7. I was like, there's no way he goes that cold again. And he's just been really off since the first round series.
Yeah, he got to be defended by Westbrook, and now he's actually facing good defense.
Yeah.
Anything else you want to touch on before we get out of here?
No, I think we touched everything pretty well.
All right. Check us out, iTunes, Block Talk Radio, OTGBasketball.com, Google Play, Dash Radio, and YouTube. Also, get yourself some OTG tees.
For sure. Peace out, knuckleheads.